WrestleMania. Oh,
WrestleMania. Sick.
we're done with
Past moment.
Pastamania. Now it's time for WrestleMania.
Back-to-back manias here after our adventures at number 5 with the Mega Powers exploding. We survived the explosion of the Mega Powers.
Oh yeah, I ducked and covered and hid under my desk like they taught you back in the old days in the school.
You know, we have survived the Mega Powers explosion, but will we survive the ultimate challenge?
Good question. Seems to be a lot of not just mega powers explosions, but the kind of theme over the year leading up to this, over like well, from the previous WrestleMania, but through SummerSlam and all the other events and weekly shows, is they had all these team ups of kind of weird team ups that hadn't been before, and then they all kind of broke up and all fought against each other the next year. Seems to be like the theme.
Yeah. Two mega stars can never coexist for too long.
Yeah.
There can only be one ultimate male, one ultimate champion. Love this.
I hope it's Macho Man.
If only.
He's not even in the match, but I still hope he wins.
It's the Coliseum home video cover here. Is this the snowy peaks of Canada, or is it just a big mountain of cocaine?
Oh, that's a good question, because it's the one on the left. Yeah, it's there's a lot of powder snow going on. It's like, who's going to get to it first? And it's funny on the other image there. It's got I don't know. I assume it's a magazine cover, but I don't know if it's a fan recreation, because in the background it's clearly like a photo, whereas the one on the old VHS thing just looks like the worst low render graphic possible, whereas the one on the right looks really nice and crisp with the mountains. So I don't know if someone's on a fan recreation of a magazine cover or what. I just found it online. I don't know exactly what it is.
Champion versus champion. 3 hours of spectacular action. We do feel some of that 3 hours, by God, sometimes on this show.
It goes on and on.
But it's worth it, for the good moments.
Yeah.
The Toronto Sky Dome. Like, this is how an arena should look.
Oh, except
it's not an arena, it's a dome. But, this is how it should look for a WrestleMania.
Yeah, I feel like you could be watching like U2 or David Bowie or something in the middle there, and it wouldn't look out of place.
And, we kind of say it pretty much every show we've done since WrestleMania 2 onwards, how the production values always kind of jump a little and improve, year to year.
Yeah,
they're really, really good here, I think, for 6.
I think production-wise, Mania 6 is pretty damn near flawless production-wise. I'm talking on the technical level, like match-wise, different opinion, but on a technical production-wise, it's damn near flawless.
They seem to have just, at this point in 1990, they've just got it down.
We're going into a new decade.
New decade, and it's an intergalactic affair as well, because we get it shows like Warrior and Hogan as star constellations. It's like the biggest splash in the universe. Yeah. But even the way there we go. Even the way they're kind of playing around with these optical effects and stuff, you can tell they're
getting better at their little crappy graphics, which is not their fault. There's limited technology at the time as far as what this isn't fucking James Cameron films. It's just TV stuff. So your TV graphics are pretty shitty across the board, no matter what you're watching. But they are improving.
Definitely. Yeah, as far as a live sports production,
you won't see any star wipes here.
Great job. No. You will see a cool WrestleMania logo though, and they do a nice little trick where the V turns into the symbol for the WWF. It's a really nice graphic.
Yeah, it's a nice little graphic tricks and stuff, and that. Oh, cool. And I love
course.
in the opening shots in the audience, early in Canada, eh? One guy's got the macho shirt, the other guy's got the hot rod shirt. So I want to be where they are. I'll hang out with those guys, man.
Yeah, two good guys right there. They probably already were like on their way to the car by the time the guys were coming out for the main event because the guy had already rested. But of course, we got Gorilla and Jesse, the dream team themselves.
Yeah, and this is not long before Ventura, had his disagreements, and he's like, well, Sue McMahon and won, and obviously left.
Yeah, drink it in. We won't be seeing him for a long time again. It's definitely as far as in this situation, we won't ever see him again, I suppose, unless we start. By the time we get to the Baba Joe show, episode 998, and we're really struggling for content, so we're like reviewing individual episodes of weekly TV and stuff. But yeah, drink it in. It's the Jesse and Gorilla train coming to an end here.
And there's a lot of things changing over. You do kind of feel it's like you've got, your different champions on the rise changing over. We're not quite at the new blood and the youth movement and all that, where it becomes more sort of Brett and Sean and other guys. We're not there yet. We're on the edge of that. And, Sean's still on the Rockers, Bret Hart's still in tag teams. But you've also got, they're starting to crank out more wrestling video games, merchandise is going overboard, and things are just really, we're going into a different decade and things are happening. And there was one match that was not broadcast. So it's not in any of the versions you watch now, but Mark will tell you about this match.
Yeah, you had to be there really to experience this. Like Johnny said, it's never been broadcast. No footage exists unless you were there and in a substance-induced state in the dome at the time. You would not have bore witness this match. But Fresh Prince did go over. And that's okay with me because I'm a Fresh Prince type of guy.
Yeah. But what was the real match? There was a real match that actually was not a joke one that wasn't aired.
Yeah, there's like a Paul Roma dark match, isn't there?
Yeah. I don't really know anything about it. I was reading up just a brief production history of the thing this week, and it's like, yeah, there was Mania, but they left that one out. And there's also another match that's not in the modern versions, but I put a couple of stills in, so we'll talk about that when we get to it. So it's fairly infamous.
Yes.
And I forgot it was in this particular Mania because it wasn't in the version I watched this week, but I do have the match on a DVD somewhere, so I have watched it before.
Yes, we will not shy away from the controversial history of the company in our review tonight. No. But yeah, here we go, Koko B. Ware, and finally, after a couple of shows of us kind of foreseeing and prophesizing his arrival, Rick Martel has finally shown up on our screens as the model.
Yes,
Rick Martel, or Rick the Model Martel.
He's still got the long hair; he hasn't cut it short yet. But yeah, because when you get later into the main early '90s, he's usually got the shorter hair, and he's often wearing like fluoro colors and all the Fresh Prince colors. Whenever I see that sort of stuff, so I think,
yeah, this is it's still somewhat the early days of the model. He's no longer carrying that useless git Tito Santana. He's gotten shot of him and he's on the rise. Hey, his words, not mine. But yeah, he's going up against the Birdman, Koko B. Ware. And he's it's a decent little opener, though Martel does make short enough work of Koko, as he should. Martel definitely a star on the rise at this point as a single.
It's funny that Mania 6, I do feel, is different in quite a few of the other ones, and that the opening matches are actually fairly strong and more interesting. But I wouldn't say Mania 6 is anybody's favorite WrestleMania across the whole event of when you look at how it kind of averages out to what's in there.
Thank goodness for the main big kind of draw matches, because yeah, there is a lot of maybe for want of a better term, filler on this card, or at least it seems like there is
There's
when
at
you're
least 3 squash
rewatching.
matches that go for about 2 minutes each, and I'm like, when I was counting up just how many matches are there, I was like, there's a lot.
If you were a kid though back in the day looking in the video shop, you'd be like, wow, look at all the matches on this one. This is definitely the one
It's
I
like,
want
yeah,
to
they
watch.
spent longer doing the intro than the match went for.
Yeah, well, you got to squeeze the whatever, these 14 or 15 matches into a 3-hour Coliseum home
Well,
video.
you're kind of used to squash matches more in the modern wrestling, where some of the intros they might do 10 minutes of actual story of guys just like The Rock talking smack on a microphone in the ring, and then someone comes out and the guy runs in, and then they do this and they have like a pretend match. But that's kind of more story based. There's no one's really expecting a full match out of that. Whereas this is meant to be a match, and some of these this one's fine, but some of the other ones, it's just literally the intro was longer for the two guys coming out of the match goes for.
Yeah, just an excuse to get guys out onto the big show while we smash through these matches on the way to getting through to the important one.
But yeah,
two great entrance musics here as well. Coco Beware's entrance music's a great wee theme.
And like I do like that there's a lot of shots of the crowd in this Mania where you can see it's just all families and kids and all ages and people, and they're really into it. You can see like the enthusiasm, and I do really enjoy seeing the crowd. And there's quite a bit of the old Vox Pops where they go out and say, "Who do you think's going to win? And what about this? And what about that?" And they go up to the not just the adults but the young 10-year-old kids going, "Oh, I like so and so, man," and you can see it just kind of brings joy to your heart before we get into the more cynical areas of wrestling and that.
Well, I love to see it, because for WrestleManias 4 or 5, they were in the Trump Plaza, and we did remark at the time that it felt like at least half the crowd. Yeah, like it felt like at those shows, like half the crowd were maybe just guys who they were there to go to the casino. They weren't really that interested in what was going on. Whereas at least here we're in front of a packed dome full of like enthusiastic fans who actually want to see the show, and the amount of people with signs and
place. So
yeah, and there's like guys with like Warrior face painted on them, and they're Hulk Hogan
there's so many people with their own homemade signs where you can tell they've just drawn it. They haven't drawn it particularly well, but just the effort they put into it is really commendable.
Colossal Connection here. Love those tag team titles. I absolutely love them. Of course, Bobby holding on to Andre's on his behalf.
I just finished my Ric Flair book about a week ago that came out last year. It's a brand new book, really awesome about his whole career and life and times and everything and hijinks. And then I thought, what am I going to read next? Because there's a pile of about 6 different wrestler biographies on the big man. I'm reading his book at the moment, and that's the one that guys that wrote and researched that book also made the documentary a couple of years back. Fantastic book.
It's really funny where Bobby says his piece here, and he's always great, Bobby. You always know he's just going to give you just excellence on the mic. Then he hands it over to Andre and Haku, and they're both supposed to say something at the same time in unison, but they both kind of missed their cue just a little bit. It's like, we're going to eliminate or destroy the... they're just talking over each other. It's like yeah, for Andre, we're getting very close to the end here. And as far as matches go, this is going to be like, we're not going to be seeing any more Mania matches out of him.
It's noticeable, and I mean, he does a fine effort in this match, but it's really noticeable how limited his physical mobility is and degeneration and that due to his health. Because there's a few times where he knocks people out of the ring in this match. Also, he also guests at ringside for several other matches of Mania 6. He's just kind of hanging about quite a bit, and a few times he just knocks people out of the ring in storyline bits. But where in the old days he would have just like picked them up and thrown them over the top rope. Here he just kind of awkwardly scuffles and kicks them under the bottom rope because you can tell his back's just not going to handle it. He's just...
Yeah, and even I know we're skipping ahead slightly, but even towards the end of this match where he's having his altercation with Bobby, you can tell that he's actually struggling nearly to keep his own balance when he's putting Bobby
Yeah,
out of the ring. Like the momentum is almost sending him back, so he's really kind of struggling physically at this point. So it's a miracle, really, like that he's able to even get through the full length of this match. Now, that being said, Haku does do the lion's share, obviously, of the working
yeah,
for this match. He's in there with Demolition, a lot, and Haku, like we said last time when he was fighting Hercules, like he is a hard hitting, strong motherfucker. Like
very
he's
strong.
just
I
like
would say
and
out of
two
those
and
four guys, he would be the strongest for actually the
oh yeah,
condition he's in there to actually lift and throw you around. The other guys might
yeah.
be bigger and pumped up, but I think he would actually be the strongest.
Demolition here are brilliant as well, and their promo before the match and also during the actual match itself, they look badass as well, coming
Yeah,
out with their
I love their music.
their their music, the kind of Mad Max Lord Humongous style kind of masks and stuff they're wearing. It looks really cool. I love it. I love it. But I suppose the big story of the match is first of all that the Colossal Connection actually lose the belts. But but coming out of this, Bobby's really pissed off at Andre for supposedly messing things up for the team. So there's a whole big kerfuffle after the match, and
I love the
yeah,
kerfuffle.
Andre,
I love all the
the
gestures of the
kerfuffle is great.
phrase.
Kerfuffle is great, and you can't really hear what Bobby's saying to Andre, but you
You
can
don't
kind
need
of
to.
read his
It's
lips.
pantomime. It's like silent
Yeah,
film stuff they're doing with all the mannerisms
yeah,
and
pointing, and he slaps Andre, which is big no.
even you can see like Andre's lips and that bit. He's like this. You can see
Yeah.
he's just he's,
So, and of course, Haku tries for a sneak attack, but Andre catches his foot and dispatches him and kicks him out of the kind of motorized ring cart when him and Bobby are
yeah. When he
trying
goes
to
to
get
climb up, and he
away.
just shoves him off it back onto the floor and takes off without him.
But it
It's like
is
this is my car.
it's a nice little
You're
moment for
right.
Andre at the end of this match because I suppose up until here he'd been playing the heel for years. He finally returns to being a face, being a good guy,
Yes.
and we got to see him kind of being whisked out of the ring on the little motorized cart. So and he's waving to the fans, and the fans are happy. So it's a nice little bit of imagery here for his final WrestleMania match.
Yeah, it's funny seeing this, and then this morning I was reading his book, and I was looking at pictures of him, like the rare pictures, I guess, the the little black and white stuff in the scan into the book, and he was like 20 years old, and he's tall, but he hasn't yet put all the weight on, so he looks he actually looks tall and thin.
Yeah, and in like a healthy way, like he's actually slim. He's not like
Yes.
emaciated or anything like that. But
No, no.
yeah, like I was
And he hadn't
even
even really
here
put the
though.
muscle on yet. They're saying, he was starting to fill out and actually get some, muscle and conditioning. But at the same time, he was also starting to drink the wine and other stuff.
His legs here seem particularly bad. That you can really see his like knees wobbling a lot when he's walking in the
Yeah,
ring, and like he's always reaching for the rope, the nearest
yeah,
rope, to try and steady himself. And but once again, like it's one of those things I would have watched this as a kid on video back in the day and wouldn't have even noticed. Like you just it's easy now, obviously, as an adult, and you're reading these books, you're watching these documentaries that are pointing out, how bad shape he's in, and then you watch it and it's like, oh yeah, he is in bad shape. Like, how did I not realize the
yeah.
guy can like barely keep his balance, and
And
he's
I'll
struggling
just
through this.
touch on in a minute part of why he's in such bad shape, and it's not just his bad habits as far as well, he's been a wrestler for decades, and that beats up your body, of course, as it does to anyone long term. And it's not just like, oh well, he's been eating junk food and drinking all this. What it's like? No, he was actually born with a condition. I'll probably pronounce it wrong, but it's called acromegaly, and it basically means that parts of your body keep growing beyond puberty, where normally you would stop growing. So particularly, it says enlarged bones in the skull, face, jaw, hands, and feet. So as you get older, your hands are still getting bigger. That's why it's got such gigantic bloody hands. As well as being a big person, this condition makes it so your hands and your jaw and your face. And as he gets older, that's why his face looks so much more distinct as he gets older. And that, but unfortunately, along with that condition, is basically a shortened lifespan because you could call it like a genetic defect because it has a high risk of like diabetes, heart disease, problems with the musculoskeletal system. There's just a whole massive list of stuff, and it's like you've basically, if some people have won the genetic lotto, you're basically losing the genetic lotto, getting this condition because it's just going to fuck you up eventually.
Yeah, and obviously he was a famous and like world famous, well known celebrity at the time, but he was paying a price, physically, to just go out and do this type of thing. And, long before this, like, if you think about it now, like, we've been kind of talking about Andre's deteriorating condition nearly since the first time he actually appeared on a WrestleMania. We've literally been kind of watching him kind of steadily go down.
Yeah, all through the 80s, because his heyday was the 60s and 70s. So.
Yes, exactly. Like, so we're really kind of witnessing his final big run, like in the business here, and it is kind of sad when you kind of look at it from that perspective to kind of see how much he physically declined. But like you said, it's it's not because he's like abusing himself like with alcohol and pills, which he was doing, but it's because of his actual medical condition as well. Like, that's what's kind of driving this to happen. Yeah, a great performer, no doubt. On to another big guy who's just delighted to be here. Earthquake. I do chuckle when you're like watching this promo with him backstage with Gino.
He's always doing that.
And Jimmy Hart. Yeah, he's
bouncing around. And they seem to be pushing him a lot over the last year. He features quite heavily in the previous 12 months in matches, and they did some rivalry, and they were building up to rivalry with Hogan and other stuff. And
yes, and he's so really young, pushing. Like like mid-20s or whatever. He's really young guy, like, at this point still. And Jimmy Hart, of course, come on baby,
just... I was reading this thing a while back on about how there was a point where Earthquake in Japan did some actual sumo stuff, and it's like, he fought some actual sumo wrestlers. And then I read another thing that said, well, the guy who fought was a really undersized sumo wrestler who was apparently really bad. I'm like, well, that's not quite such. That's a bit of different detail to the story.
I can't speak to how good the opponent was, but I do know this as a result of that, participation in sumo.
Yeah.
He was very famous in Japan. I think he was like nearly.
Well, he can definitely move. He can definitely move like sumo's move. He's not just a big blubber man. He can actually move, and he's got some agility to him. And
there's I don't know. There's a lack of continuity here, though, I think, a little bit, because he's doing his Earthquake bounce backstage and everybody's okay standing beside him. But when he does that shit in the ring, everybody's like, whoa!
Oh, God. They used to do that in that arcade video game, too. He would bounce around, and it was cool.
Of course, Hercules here, babyface. Herc's his kind of a bit of a big singles last hurrah for him.
I actually saw a chain in a hardware store that was like this week, and I sent you a photo of it.
Yes.
Because I was randomly there, and I was just browsing random stuff, and I was like, oh man, there's like a Hercules-sized chain. It was really big.
So yeah, it's like it's a reversal of roles here. We watched our first couple of Manias where Hercules was this big heel, and he was the guy you had to overcome, whereas now the rules are reversed, where he's the kind of underdog, kind of fighting up against this big Earthquake. Yeah. And it's it's a short match, and it's mostly short and sweet. Hercules
it's short, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, Hercules is good. I always, like I often say I do like Herc, and I just love his big clubbing clotheslines and just rough and tough style.
I like when Earthquake gets him in the corner and just starts like shoulder barring. It's like, oh my God.
Of course, the Earthquake sit down splash, you really hope he's timing that right.
Set up, you'd be paralyzed.
Yeah, he got some. He got some a few times with it though after the match. I think he hits like 3 of them at the end. He just keeps going and
Yeah.
going, determined to end Hercules' career here by squashing him, literally squashing him in the ring by sitting on him.
That's a literal squash match.
Like after this, they actually had to just like peel Hercules off the mat with like a spatula,
Mm.
like he was just flattened into the mat. But yeah, they're
But yeah,
getting like as you said, they're getting Earthquake ready for a run up and a bit of a feud going on with Hogan and a few of the other players.
yeah, they really start pushing him a lot because he's always kind of one of those undercard sort of guys, and for whatever reason, it seemed to be this year they were really, pushing him and getting him in a lot of matches and getting different rivalries and stuff going with guys he wouldn't normally be mixing up with. I love that little camera shot down the end there where looking across the ring and you can see the chains just piled up in the corner, and whoever the camera guys did a really nice shot of that, focusing on that in the foreground.
Nice shiny chain as well. He knows
Yeah.
how to keep his chain looking good, Hercules. Got to keep that oiled up and prevent rust.
Yeah, no rust here. But he didn't
Yeah,
swing it
fun
around like the other
looking
years
match.
one. He didn't swing it around at the start. I was waiting to see if he'd do that this time. And it's like, maybe they said that's kind of dangerous. Maybe don't do that this time, just in case.
Probably like we're trying to phase you down a bit. Don't get over with the crowd. Just go out and get beat as quickly as you possibly can.
But yeah, I did enjoy this match for another like kind of abbreviated short match. It's fun. They're fairly dynamic for two big chunky sort of dudes.
Oh yeah, and like don't get me wrong as well. I know sometimes you're like, oh, there's so many matches and loads of them are missable and blah blah blah. I would much rather watch a maybe short, forgettable match than have to slog through like a load of long-winded, heavy,
There's nothing
boring
worse than
matches. Like
matches that drag on that shouldn't. Like, I mean, not every long match is going to be some fucking 60-minute Ric Flair 70s, 80s classic that's worth watching. There's plenty of ones that just drag on when nothing happens. So yeah, I like
yeah,
some shorter matches sometimes just for the brevity and move it along. And
we got a big deal about to happen here. Um, if Treasure for Trigger is watching, this has got to be one of the
yeah, I love
highlights
those eyes
for
bugging.
his
I sent him
man.
that picture this morning with the eyes bugging out. I love that.
Brutus the Maniac, as
Yeah.
Jesse rightly points out, the name of the game is wrestling, not like chopping people up with garden shears. It's just he's bringing this
Well, he might.
illegal
Maybe
object
he
to the
wants to
ring.
be a slasher horror movie star. Maybe that'll come off of that. Can be going the horror movie career. I feel bad actually. Lead coming up from not long after this, it leads up into the next year or two when he has that horrible bloody accident where somebody parasailing literally smashes into his face and destroys his
Yes,
entire face and has to get reconstructed through surgery. And they actually play it up in the angle in the wrestling, which makes you think, well, was it real? But no, it was real. He really did.
it
His
was
face got
real.
destroyed. If it wasn't for plastic surgeons and surgery, it would have been completely fucked and never wrestled again.
Yeah, so good old Brutus, he's going up against Mr. Perfect here, who's at this point in time being managed by the Genius. Do you know much about the Genius?
Well, I know he's Macho's brother and all that, but I don't. He seems to pop up infrequently. I don't. Why is he in a manager role here? Is my question.
Yeah, they are a bit of an odd fit, um, in the sense that like I don't know. I always, even though Perfect's had a few managers, he's one of those guys who probably never really needed one. Um,
Yeah.
but I do like Genius. He is funny. He does
Oh, I
do
like it.
good
It's just kind
heel
of sporadic
promos.
his appearances.
Yes, and he's managing Mr. Perfect here at the moment. Later on, he's going to be managing like the Beverly Brothers tag team. He does have his yeah. He's definitely a featured character, though you never quite know how featured he's going to be, and his role does it varies a lot over the course of his spell
Well,
in the Fed.
I forgot the genius guy existed for many years because I mean I didn't have pay TV or nothing. There was no way to watch wrestling stuff for a long time in Australia. I couldn't watch anything, apart from maybe like renting a DVD. And when I was getting back into it a couple of years ago, and I had the network, and I was able to watch the whole back catalogue of whatever, and also watch the Macho Man documentary where we get to see him when he's older and grey hairs and short hairs and talking about his career. When I saw him in the gown, I went, I recognise that guy from the trading cards because it was Red Rooster when I was in primary school. But and that was but I'd never actually seen the matches back then. All I'd seen was the trading card, and I remembered it from that.
Yeah. Two guys who stuck out to you were the Genius and the Red Rooster because of how ridiculous they both look.
That's for being stupid looking. It's exactly. Because everyone else is like wrestler, guy who's graduating from college, and guy who's going to KFC. Or there's actually a store. We actually have an equivalent. We have KFC here. We actually have another place called Red Rooster in Australia. It's a chain store of chicken takeaway like KFC that does more like roast chicken instead of battered chicken.
Interesting. Red Rooster's chicken. If I ever am in Australia, I shall try and frequent it and get a photo outside the Red Rooster.
Too bad I don't have like an action figure. I could drive 10 minutes down the road and get a photo of a Red Rooster at the Red Rooster.
But we're about to witness a pretty big deal here. As far as a lot of people are concerned, this is going to be Mr. Perfect's like kind of first televised loss in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
He'd been undefeated up until this point, so Brutus going to get the win here is a big deal. I was reading somewhere recently that Perfect apparently had been defeated before this, though on a show that was only taped for the New York market. It was like a match
like
he had with Ultimate Warrior.
A national syndicated one. I read the same thing actually in a book this week.
Excellent. So at least I'm not imagining things. That's good.
But it's pretty common. That's like, there was a thing in I think it was the 80s where Ric Flair and Harley Race came to New Zealand of all places, in Auckland and Auckland and possibly Wellington or Christchurch, and they did an unofficial change of the NWA championship, but it only existed in New Zealand. As soon as they went back to America, they went, "Nah, stuff this. This isn't part of the story." They decided to do it then and there. No one else in the rest of the NWA agreed with it, so unofficially it didn't happen, even though it did happen for a live audience.
Yeah, it could be funny back in the day for that stuff. That would happen in places like New Zealand,
Australia. The narrative was redacted. Get that marker out and like, nah, didn't happen.
Never happened. Did not happen. And then sometimes, depending on the company and the time, they would acknowledge, like the WCW World Championship changed hand in Ireland and England in house shows, and they are acknowledged in the official lineage.
That was,
it just
depends. Was this in the 90s or 80s?
That was in the 90s with
because I know in the 90s they did a lot of changing of belts in house shows and basically non-pay-per-views to try and distinguish themselves from WWF and try to make it like, something exciting can happen on a regular show, not just on the pay-per-views and that. And that was the thing of the kind of gimmick, if you like, they did quite a few times to try and get people's attention to that any show might be, exciting and bigger than just the event because the title change happened. And
happen anywhere unless you're there live, you might not see it. But yeah, back to the match here. Perfect. He is defeated, but it's kind of, he nearly defeats himself. He kind of he allows himself to be taken advantage by Brutus, and he gets catapulted into the corner where he hits the kind of ring post head first. So then Brutus is able to get the pin on him, and
he just kind of stumbles and passes out.
Poor Genius gets a bit of his haircut after the match as well.
Well, he needs a haircut, bloody hippie. Come on.
He doesn't give him that much of a haircut, though. He's probably trying to save his hair for house shows because they probably have to do this again like several more nights in a row. So he's running out of hair.
They're not doing one of those like Seth Rollins handcuffed to the ring and it's like some kind of like torture porn thing and he's wailing, going, "Oh!" They're shaving his head. I'm like, what are you, a 10-year-old girl? Get out of here. Getting your hair cut. Jesus, like he's never had his hair cut in his life and he's like a little child screaming like, "Oh, they're cutting my hair."
We see here in the in the corner. Who is this lady that's interviewing Miss Elizabeth? I know she's
I have
somebody
no
like
idea.
famous
She
from the
pops up
time.
several
Yeah,
times, and I don't know who she is.
yeah, she's definitely somebody who was well known and famous at the time. If anybody is watching or listening to this now knows who we are talking about, put it in the comments because I don't know. Otherwise,
Well,
she'll
she
just have
pops
to
up in
remain
a bunch of
nameless.
promos, actually. Let's see. Rona Barrett. So I still don't know who she is,
There
but
we
that's
go.
her name. I've got no context.
Well,
But she pops up in a bunch of promos of the show.
I think she was like some celebrity gossip reporter or something
I
like that at
assume so.
the time. So,
Someone who's
well, look,
on like a
she's here.
celebrity, I would assume.
She's helping demonstrate to us why Liz usually doesn't talk for long periods of time. She just never has much to say. But it's a nice little reintroduction of Liz here, who's been
She actually
keeping
doesn't have
a
a
low
mouth, and it's just a
profile.
prop. It's a
Yeah,
prop mouth. She can't talk.
yeah, it's a prop. But you're only supposed to use your mouth to look concerned or worried about whoever it is you're managing at the time.
Well,
But yeah,
to be fair to like much as Mrs. It's like she plays a character, but it's always like a light character. She's never fully in the thing of the wrestling. I mean, she's on the show, she's doing all the stuff, but she's more like an actual real person. She's not like a big over the top cartoonish character. So I don't blame her if she doesn't have much to say. It means that the writers have been lazy and probably not given her any decent fucking material.
And look, the character and whole presentation really did suit her. And yeah, look, even though I make fun of her lack of talking ability, the truth is she didn't need to talk. Like that's not what she was. She was not that type of
Yeah.
manager. She was just there to, she was a lot more than just your, like you said, your typical. Like she's not going to be, running interference in a match or like grabbing a wrestler's
Yeah.
foot or doing any of those type of shenanigans that we would usually associate with managers. She's more like an advisor would probably be a better role for, or to describe, or a better way to describe what Liz does.
But she's classier than most managers and whatnot anyway.
Oh yeah, especially at this point in time. We might not be thinking her as tasteful a lady when we see her in her like NWO mini skirts and
Hanging out with
that
DDP.
and hanging off Eric Bischoff's arm and stuff. She looks fucking great though. I'm not complaining. It's a different character. Like it's definitely
what's the name in Grease? Olivia Newton-John at the end of Grease. She turns into that character.
Yeah, she turns out to be a bad girl. There's our Lizzie.
Is it Sandra D? I'm terrible at remembering the names of characters.
Yeah, she's back and she's making her presence known.
Yeah.
And here we have the deleted match. The match that has been peacocked, it's been erased from history.
It's removed from the well, it's probably removed from the DVDs as well, I think, but it's definitely from the digital networks. It's not there. The streaming, like I watched it yesterday, it's not there. And I wouldn't have noticed if Mark hadn't said, by the way, this match isn't on there. I mean, I might have eventually when I was going through the match list because I got that off from WWE website and it does mention the match, but not any details about it. But I have watched the match on the I got a 3-disc set of Piper that came out a number of years ago, and it was on that. Well, I don't know if the full match is on it, but like all the stuff around it's on that because I remember specifically all the details about it.
Enough to get the picture, and to be honest with you, like the whole thing, even if you include the interviews and the entrances and then the match itself, you're talking about maybe 7.5 minutes of footage. I think.
Yeah, it's not very long, and it's not a memorable match.
Yeah, in fact, it's nearly more memorable for the actual promo and Piper's appearance.
And the gimmick,
the match itself. So for those of you who have not seen it and who possibly will not see it unless you happen to have physical media or an illegal
that hot rod
of the event,
set you can pick up for about $10 on eBay, and I think it's on there, or at least most of the stuff's on there.
But Piper, he's feuding with Bad News Brown. He's about to go out to his match, and when we see Piper backstage doing an interview with Gene Okerlund right before the match, but he's like he's turned like
he's one way. And then
you can only see, and then he turns around, and you realize that like half his body is painted completely black.
Like Two-Face and Batman.
Yes, exactly. Of course, look, the way things are, like, this could be, or some people will interpret it as like, on the same level as, blackface, or kind of, whatever racially charged term you want to
Yeah,
use to describe what's going on here. And look, when it comes to Piper, he was always kind of controversial when it came to these type of things. Like, even when we were looking at past manias where he was going up against Mr. T, like, he does say and do kind of questionable things in those older promos, especially when it comes to like pointing out aspects about people's like race and stuff, and like, going
to
to
me, it's
stereotypes.
the character that's saying those things, because like I think privately Piper, anyone that talks about him or stuff about him, he doesn't come across as racist in the least.
Well, the,
But in character, he will poke and poke and poke on whatever's sensitive and whatever's going to get a rise out of people and get attention. And he is a maniac. He's a maniac.
yeah,
He will not have no real moral or ethical boundaries when he's in character as Hot Rod. I mean, this is a guy who people have tried to stab him going into the ring, and he's turned around and fucking knocked them out and smashed the shit out of them, sent them to the hospital.
it always reminds me of, and like, I'm not trying to make light of anything or anything, but it's just that what I always think of every time I see him and
Yeah.
watch this match or revisit it. Or there's like that episode in that Star Trek, the original series, with the planet of the people who have like the two skin, like they're literally done like Piper is here, like one side of their
Really?
face is
No, I don't
black and
remember
the
that.
other side is white, and then but they're at war with the other part of the planet where people have the opposite
I
colors,
wonder
and
if
it's
he
like one
saw
of
that
those,
episode.
But yeah, it's what I always kind of think about when I see Piper here. But apart from this kind of current controversy we're talking about with this match being kind of removed and erased from history, the kind of real interesting story I think about this match is supposedly what happened in the aftermath. Apparently, Piper had a special type of solution sitting backstage
Oh yeah, there's a
for
few versions.
washing, yeah, for like washing the paint off. But
You look on the
Andre the
bottom
Giant,
right there.
yeah, Andre the Giant, as a
Yeah,
joke, decided to like pour it down the drain and replace it with water. So when Piper came backstage after the match to wash all the black paint off, the paint wouldn't come off because he didn't have the
yeah.
special solution to wash it off, and he had to go through the
And it
airport the next day
took like something
with
like a
one half of
month
his
for him
body
to get
black.
it off.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, a month to get the whole color off one side of his body.
I'm not going to read this all out loud, but this is just like down the bottom it says what is this, wrestlinginc.com bad news brown shoot interview, which I found this week, but I've read the same thing in Piper's own book. He talked about it a bit, so it wasn't sort of new to me, but I'll just read some of the highlights here. It's like so Andre, for a rib, had fucked up this mix, so that it stayed on his skin. I don't think anyone could have predicted that it would stay on for weeks and not days, because that's pretty horrible. He's stuck with that. So he had to go through the airport and travel, do all the usual things. I love the bit here. It says, "Now I'm in Toronto. Canada, half black. This is like post match and everything. I decided there's nothing much to do other than to go out drinking. Next morning, don't judge me. I wake up, the door of my hotel room is blown completely off. There's a cowboy hat in the middle of my room. I don't know whose. I wake up and go from Toronto to Oregon. I got a 4-foot Mickey Mouse with me that I bought for my daughter. And then because it's too big, they wouldn't let it on the plane. It'd have to go on the checked baggage. And he's like, stuff it. I'll buy a ticket for the Mickey Mouse so I could sit next to him. So he just sits on the plane drinking next to Mickey Mouse. And then it gets into about how how the stuff would come off, and he was going to sorters for like about a month to get this bloody paint off.
Yeah, yeah, I could just imagine the look of people's faces in the airport when he's like going through security and stuff. It's like, what is the deal with this guy who's
Yeah, just to
half
say he's a
black
complete
with a
lunatic.
Mickey Mouse? Yeah, he just looks, yeah, crazy, crazy. And like, he obviously was in the mindset where he's like, oh well, if I'm going to be half painted up like this, I don't want it to be wearing off during the match. So he must have gotten the most
Yeah,
strongest, adhesive, stickiest paint he could get to make sure it stayed on. You need like an acid wash practically to get it off.
yeah. But
But
yeah,
yeah, it's
it was a kind of crazy stunt to do, and then having to live with the damn stuff on you for weeks is like, oh my god.
yeah, it's a crazy piece of business. Oh, we got a great little segment here with this comedian guy.
It's
Can you
so
remember this
Russian
guy's
accent.
name?
Oh, this what do they call him? Tony Randall or whatever. Hang on.
He's funny. He's funny as fuck, whoever he is. He's got some
He is.
great
He is
little
very funny.
quips.
Oh, sorry. I'm Steve Allen. There we go.
Steve Allen.
That's it.
Yeah, well, you're a funny man, Steve Allen. He's sitting in the backstage showers with the Bolsheviks, and they're like, "Oh, you play Russian national anthem," and he starts
Yeah.
playing all these songs, and then one song it's like, "I don't get a kick out of Ukraine," and then the Bolsheviks just start going crazy. It's just yeah, it's a really funny backstage segment. Yeah, he's dead funny with the one-liners, but it leads to this very short and sweet match between the Hart Foundation and the Bolsheviks. The Hart Foundation, of course, being very well received in their home territory of Canada, and the Bolsheviks come out. They're going to sing the Soviet national anthem or the Russian national anthem, whatever it is, but the audience don't want to hear none of it. But they start singing, and
It's
all of a
just
sudden,
smash the knock the
yeah,
flags right over their heads. I love it.
they get smashed from behind by both Hart. You know, they're hit with the heart or the heart attack double team almost straight away. Brett
I love that
in for the win.
they telegraph it so well that they stand up and they're all like, "Oh, good upright posture and the perfect position to singing," and they telegraph it like with the big wide shot that they're walking up behind. You know they're gonna do it. You're just waiting for it. Like, come on, just get them.
And the crowd love it. They absolutely love
Yeah,
it. Yeah, because they're Bolsheviks are like beaten so quickly. I think it's like a 19-second tag team match, which has
it's
to be
so
like a
short. I
record.
was going through it, going, what? It's over. What happened? And I enjoy like I mean all these guys are exceptionally talented in the ring, and I enjoy their antics. And this is when it was more cartoonish, and it wasn't like remember when they did the Sergeant Slaughter heel turn where he's like the Iraqi sympathizer and all that. That was like I mean I like Sergeant Slaughter, no disrespect to him because he had to live that fucking gimmick and full credit to him for doing it. But you know, it was a poor taste because of the war and shit was going on at the time. And whereas this was more generic, like your Rocky Rambo sort of Ivan Drago, you know, Russia's the bad guys and we're the good guys. You know, it was more cartoonish and enjoyable. It wasn't going commenting on, you know, it's like if we had brought out another Russian, if you had a Russian bad guy now and you were trying to comment on the bloody real life war going on over there, it would just be in poor taste, and it wasn't poor taste for me doing the whole Sergeant Slaughter heel turn thing. But this kind of match I really enjoyed. It's fun without being you know too culturally insensitive in it.
Yeah, just two disliked heels getting their comeuppance from a couple of hometown boys to make sure the crowd is happy. And it's
Yeah,
over
I love
in
that
the blink
shot.
of an eye.
There's I don't know if they're using different cameras or what, but there's a lot of good shots I see in this where I'm still framing it and where the focus is there on what would normally be blurry, and you can kind of see like that, and also later where Earthquake was jumping on people. And
Yeah, it really is the tippy top of production so far that
yeah,
they've done for
so
one of
I'm
these
thinking I don't know if
WrestleManias.
they've got better quality cameras or it's just lighting or what, but they get some really great shots.
Of course, we got the Barbarian, who's accompanied by Bobby the Brain, going up against Tito
And he's
Santana. Of
gone away
course,
from the
Tito
mohawk
Santana.
look and the blue paint, and now he's got just kind of generic paint. Before further into the 90s, he becomes kind of almost generic. Well, they start where you
Yes,
know some of those 90s guys just have like the Warlord and Barbarian, where they just have like stupid bits of crap when they come out, but they've kind of lost their look they had.
yeah, they're still called their old names, but they've lost a lot of the kind of
Yeah,
accoutrements that used to come with their entrance and general kind of appearance.
yeah. Well, you know you had Road Warriors and then bloody Demolition, and then I forget the name. What's the name of the tag team? The Warlord and the other guy, but they all had the face
Or
paint,
Spain.
and they all had bits of stuff they would wear that would make them look quite distinct. And now he's just like another generic, apart from being really fucking big and strong and scary, being
Yeah.
just another generic wrestler.
And he is big and strong and scary. And, you know, even though this match is not as short as the previous match, it is still pretty short. You know, poor Tito,
Yeah.
he gets fairly rattled and knocked about by the Barbarian. Of course, he does put up an heroic effort. And Jesse always just loves, you know, slagging off Tito anytime he's on commentary. He's like, oh, the burrito and tacos, and those tacos make you sit in the toilet all day. You know, he just always has any type of dig he can get in at him. Oh, flying burrito and all this stuff. But yeah, it's another fun kind of little squash just to show that Barb is a force to be reckoned with, and possibly somebody who could be losing on a house show to a WWF champion pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of fun commentary with Gorilla and Jessa throughout the matches and Mania 6. It's probably one of my favorite things, actually, was the commentary, even regardless of which match you're watching. And there's stuff about who's eating too many hot dogs and your breath stinks and all this.
Yeah, he loves getting in his digs on Gorilla about eating a hot dog in between every match and eating a hot dog during every interview segment.
And they do good like last year's one. They do some really good recaps of the previous 12 months. So for anyone who hasn't seen the build up to what was a rivalry and whatever, the recaps are quite good, and the in between segments are quite good too, with little promos. Like they really flow well with the rest of the matches and events. And it's good seeing Sherry getting to be actually involved in the ring and not just on the sidelines.
That's right, yes, because she's going to be participating here in a mixed tag match, a mixed gender tag match where we have Dusty Rhodes and Sweet Sapphire going up against Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. I suppose I should say Macho King Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. Now, before we get into the match, because I do enjoy this match, it's a fun match for what it is. I do kind of think, you know, on a show like this where we did have so many kind of run-of-the-mill forgettable matches, wouldn't it have been great if we'd actually gotten just a one-on-one match between Randy and Dusty Rhodes on a pay-per-view, like a WrestleMania
I was disappointed it wasn't that.
Yeah, but look, what we did get was fun. Though, look, another thing though, maybe just to keep in our minds here, Randy Savage we see here in this kind of middle of the card, mid-card mixed tag match. Like, this is the man who was headlining the show the year before.
Yeah.
Against Hogan. It's a little bit of a come down in some eyes, maybe. Obviously he'd have another crack at the top later on, but I'm sure there was plenty of Macho Man fans at the time that were probably thinking, why isn't he doing more than this?
It's strange because he's like on top there, then he's like a mid card here, then he gets some more matches and another run for the limelight and whatnot. But then shortly after that, he gets demoted down to being bloody commentary on Raw, the debut episodes of Raw and that.
One thing I was surprised about when I was kind of reading up on this again and rewatching it, Sapphire was actually like a trained wrestler and had been a wrestler. I couldn't believe that because I always just thought she was literally just some like normal kind of woman who was just kind of put in this situation. She never just acted or carried herself, and even in this match, like she's doing moves and stuff, but she doesn't look like coordinated or like she really knows exactly what she's doing. But like you knew, she actually was trained. But the real star of the two women here is definitely Sherry. She's great. Everything she does, and she's shrieking, she's screaming, and she's just bouncing all over the place anytime Sapphire hits her with anything. And of course, we've got our like you've got like it because it is in some ways at times it's like a dream singles match between Savage and Rhodes because we've got our former NWA champion going up against our former World Wrestling Federation champion here, and two charismatic, iconic individuals.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, Macho's big then, but you know, he also had his shorter runs in the south and that too. And
that's right, that's right. But yeah, look, it's a fun match. You know, Sweet Sapphire looking a little
there's a
bit
lot of
dodgy aside.
charisma and a lot of charisma and I don't know the show and pizzazz and all that. You know, so that aspects of it's certainly fun.
Oh yeah, and look, you know, Macho Man and Sherry, they never fail to like put the best effort into any situation they're put in. Like in this match, they really work extra hard to actually, you know, act like bunglers, and you know they're constantly miscommunicating and like running into each other, and you know they just do a really good job of kind of making themselves look foolish in order to help get like Dusty and Sapphire kind of over as you know,
Yeah,
it just as baby faces. It just really works you know, within the context of the match, even if the match itself on paper is a bit ridiculous.
yeah, it's a weird. I mean, Dusty Rhodes in WWF was never great. Not his fault because he had an amazing career leading up to that, and good on him for going there and getting a good paycheck and good money when he was there and supporting, you know, being able to look after his family and shit. So
And good on Liz for coming out in front of everybody and interfering in the match, you know, like she said she wouldn't do. But yeah, it was a nice little moment with Sapphire, Liz, and Dusty at the end. And I think,
yeah, good old.
yeah, so everybody in this match, apart from the referee, I think is dead now. So Dusty's gone, Randy's
Oh,
gone,
Jesus, yeah,
Sherry's gone,
that's
Sapphire's
depressing to
gone,
think of that.
and Liz is gone. So the entire
Yeah.
field of players here, unfortunately, are no longer with us.
Well, I do recommend both the Macho Man documentary and the Dusty Rhodes documentary are both like awesome. Probably my favorite of all the wrestler documentaries I've watched are like these two guys.
They also have to heap praise upon Macho Man Randy Savage's crown. It looks magnificent there in that picture. It doesn't look like some. It's not some like cheapy little, you know,
Yeah,
Halloween
take that,
costume
King
crown.
Harley Race.
Yeah, that looks like a real deal crown right there. Actually has
Yeah, it's
macho
funny. Everyone else
stripes
was
on it as
like
well.
King this, you know, it was King Haku and it was King this and that, but Macho it was Macho King. It's
Yeah.
like they reversed it.
Oh yeah.
Too sweet to be sour.
Yeah, the Orient Express with Mr. Fuji going up against the Rockers here. The Midnight Rockers. Not looking as hungover here as they were last year for WrestleMania.
Not as glassy
But
eyed.
yeah,
It's like
of course,
who,
so
what,
before this
where am I, who am I?
just right before this match, we do get to back-to-back backstage interviews with Hogan and Warrior. Both totally crazy. Warrior is more crazy
Yep.
than Hogan. He's just really just
I just
out of
thought it
his.
was Bon Jovi with that hair, but if you say it's the Warrior, I believe you.
Look at the veins in Warrior's arms. Even in this shot, like look at all. It's like a road map. It's so many veins in his arms.
I
It's
think those are like baby snakes from Jake the Snake that are actually inside his body trying to get out.
yeah, just wriggling. Yeah, inside
Yeah,
his massive torso there.
or like Star
Uh,
Trek 2.
ready to explode as Warrior. But yeah, we get a fun match between this original version of the Orient Express and the Rockers. They'd go on to have many more matches, these two teams. This one is probably one of the more less memorable ones just because it's relatively short and because of the count out finish. But
And
these
they're
two
fighting
teams
guys
would
their own
end up being
size rather than giants like in last year's one.
yeah, we're getting to see a little bit more of the dynamic between like kind of two small fast teams going against each other rather than the David versus Goliath situation we
Yeah.
got last year when they
Which
took
I
on
don't
the
mind
Twin
that sort of
Towers.
thing, but if you're going to have like crazy little guys and big guys, I like that on a Royal Rumble where just anything goes. Whereas in a classic match, it's nice to get people of a similar, you know, weight and size so they can play to their strengths.
Yeah, and like don't get me wrong, when it's pro wrestling, you can get away with a lot when it comes to you know these completely mismatched individuals kind of facing
So
off against each
can we
other.
just see the dream match of Hornswoggle versus Andre? That's what we all want to see.
But you know, for especially if you're in any ways like familiar with like real sports and combat sports, especially, you do kind of in your mind
Weight
at least try and
divisions.
organize people. Yeah, you like kind of weight classes and fair fights. If
Yeah,
it was
like
real,
if you
it
go
couldn't
into
work.
bloody UFC or K1 or kickboxing or anything, it's like, well, here's a super heavyweight versus lightweight. 2 seconds, bang, it's the end of the fight.
Yeah, good old wrestling, like
Right, we
yeah.
might do a little ad break before we go on to the next lot of things. I'll tell you in advance because my ad break goes for about 4 minutes. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to get me another little bit of refreshment.
Yeah, I'll go to the concession stand and grab us some hot dogs here.
Get some popcorn, some hot dogs. Check out. You might run into some celebrities out there in the front row. So just watch out, don't trip over.
All right.
Oh, we're back in a few minutes.
From the pages of the World Wrestling Federation official merchandise catalog, here's Dusty Rhodes.
Whoa, this is Dusty Rhodes, and you know I got my hands full in the World Wrestling Federation. And full of what? Come in here, Dollar. We gonna show him some stuff. I got the official WWF merchandising catalog stuff right here. You can order it out of that catalog. I'm gonna tell you in a minute how to get it. Look at here. We got a WWF hat right here. Look how fine that looks on Dusty Rhodes magazine. What else we got? Woo, Sapphire, come on in here, baby. We got an Ultimate Warrior Suck Cup. And you can take this cup, put milk in it, juicy, whatever you want to do. What else we got? Oh, look at here. A belt. You can be a champion. Everybody can be a champion, just like all the great stars in the World Wrestling Federation. And what else, darling, right here? Oh, show that. That's my favorite. Hold that up there. Dusty Rhodes official t-shirt. Throw that up there in the camera. Oh, is that pretty? And let me tell you, merchandise catalog, genuine. Only place you can get it right to this address right now.
For your free catalog, write to the World Wrestling Federation Merchandise Department, P.O. Box 3866, Stamford, Connecticut, 06904.
Whoa, the WWF official merchandise catalog, brother, got all kind of stuff in it. You know what I'm talking about? And it's the stuff dreams are made of.
Coliseum Video.
Did you know that 9 out of 10 kids play video games?
I won! We're Pro Gamer Moon! We're Pro Gamer Moon! We're Pro Gamer Moon! We're Pro Gamer Moon!
But did you also know that video games cause violence?
No! We're gonna hurt Stanley!
It's time to play. For real.
No!
Stop your children from playing video games today.
Now that's a pro gamer move.
Before it's too late.
My name is Lieutenant Frank Drebin, Police Squad, a special unit of the police department. I was having my car washed when I received an urgent call from downtown. There'd been a bombing at the courthouse. I got to headquarters as fast as I could.
This way, please.
Don't play dumb with me.
Yeah, that's the end of the old ad block. And beware of kids playing video games, because in the 90s they're becoming much more popular. There was wrestling video games and Mortal Kombat and all sorts of horrible stuff.
Where did that video game ad come from?
It's completely made up. Someone made that, and it's so well done. They've actually done it full VHS style with like capture card and stuff, and like using modern equipment, but making it all that Vaseline smears and the bad audio. I'm going to put a link in when this is uploaded. I'm going to put a link into the channel because the same guy's made a bunch of other similar stuff that's all done in that 90s style.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I love it.
I just found it today by accident when I was looking at ads, and it's so well done. It's like I love it.
Yeah, it definitely got a chuckle out of me, especially the end. But I am a big kid, and I do enjoy my toilet humor.
Yeah, but it's not far off some of the crazy ads and parent group sort of bullshit back then. It's pretty on point.
Well, Tetris is the most rage-inducing game of all, so I can see why people would be worried about that.
Well, I wanted a long one, Mark, and it gave me one of those damn L-shaped blocks. But yeah, the poor old rockers get some of the old powder or salt or whatever the heck it is in the face. I guess it's like baby powder because it's very fine mist that'll blind you good.
Yeah, it's whatever type of powder you need for the audience to know what you're doing. Because if it was actual salt, they probably couldn't see it, so they just wouldn't know what you'd done. So yeah, you need something, probably like baby powder, talcum powder, create that bit of cloud. It also disappears fast enough for the referee not to notice.
Oh yeah. Because I like for a change that actually that the wrestlers are using it, it's not Mr. Fuji doing, because usually Mr. Fuji's doing it.
Yeah, it's like we said though. I think we mentioned this on because Fuji was actually wrestling on the previous Mania. He was in that match, but it's a real old wrestling trope. The whole the Japanese menace will throw salt in your eyes. It's just that kind of.
And he's always got that walking stick, which is it's just a weapon. It's just a Mr. Magoo walking stick to smack people with.
It's a weapon. He'll snag you in the ankle if you get too close to him. He'll trip you up and let his team get the advantage. Oh, we got a nice little backstage segment here with that comedian dude again with the Rhythm and Blues, who are preparing for their debut. Yeah, they're going to debut their new song later on this show. It's quite the big deal. What's it like? The comedian guy says something like, I'm here to interview the hottest act in music today, but they're not here, so I'm just going to talk to you instead, honky tonk. So yeah, they get a nice little backstage moment before we get to see them properly later on. And now we get Earthquake's going to be pulling double duty because he's accompanying Canadian strongman Dino Bravo to the ring with his match with Jim Duggan, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And Hacksaw comes out waving the American flag and gets somewhat of a lukewarm response here in Canada with his waving of the American flag. I wonder why. Actually, that reminds me. I know we always skip the national anthems on these shows, so that I'm only after thinking about it here now.
The one on this was reasonable because it's Canada. It's much more tolerable.
It's the "Oh Canada," but who's singing that album or that?
I don't know the name of the person.
I can't think of his name either, but I will tell you this: he's in Beetlejuice. He's that guy from Beetlejuice who's like friends with the Deets, and he calls round to the house with his wife, and he ends up getting like flatted through the roof of the house when they do that bit where like he gets hit. It's like a carnival thing. I'm doing a really bad job of describing this, but the point I'm trying to get across is the guy who sings the Canadian national anthem on the opening of this show was in the movie Beetlejuice, and these are the two things I know that guy from. I know him from singing the national anthem at WrestleMania 6 and being in Beetlejuice. But anyways,
I like Steve Allen's doing the Bolshevik anthems better.
But yeah, we're here. with Hacksaw versus Dino Bravo.
Oh,
Oh, it's going to be another one. I won't call it short and sweet, but it's definitely
yeah, it's
short
really
and sweet.
short again. It does feel like they
Yeah.
put just a little bit too many matches in, so there's so many matches in Mania 6 that they just have to be short to make room for the big ones.
Yeah. This is the type of situation where I probably would have just given the audience a battle royal instead of doing all these extra matches. If it's a case where
Yeah,
you
yeah.
wanted to get a lot of people on the show, just throw them all in a battle royal. That's my
Yeah, that would have
solution
been
to
more
that
fun
problem.
if it had a battle royale with a lot of these shorter match guys, and then which would then make room for a longer match with someone else who actually deserves it, like I don't know, Macho and fucking American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, like a bit of a match for those guys, longer match, sorry, with those guys,
Yeah, Duggan, he's not quite as popular in Canada as he is doing the whole USA shtick, in the United States. Not surprised. And Jassy points out that he's an idiot for coming out waving an American flag instead of a Canadian flag, and he's delighted that the audience are kind of booing him. It's a rare occasion where one of the
you know what he could have
beloved
done?
baby faces.
Just bring out both fucking
Yes.
flags. Why not?
He should have been thinking ahead. Of course, he'd go on to join Team Canada. in
Jimmy
WCW
Hart's. I now
later
know that
on.
Jimmy Hart's wearing something Canadian based on the previous Mania where he had those fabulous Rougeos or whatever, because I didn't know what the hell that symbol was, and you pointed out to me it was a Canadian, that little flowery
I think it's
symbol.
like
French Canadian.
Montreal or something like. That's right. That's right.
And Jimmy Hart
Yeah.
wears
Oh,
so
you
many
know-
damn different suits and jackets in this Mania. It might be a record number he wears.
Oh yeah, he's like Bobby the Brain the year before. Jimmy Hart is like the manager MVP on this one. He's just all over the show,
Yeah.
as
Awesome.
energetic as ever. But yeah, this
And
is
I think a lot of
this is your
music credits
typical
on him
type
in
of.
this Mania too, actually. A lot of the themes and stuff. He worked on so many of them.
That's right. That's right. And actually, on the subject of music, this is one of those manias where nearly, or at least it feels like most of the people who come out to the ring actually have entrance music.
Yeah.
Now Hacksaw doesn't have any for this match, oddly enough, but for most of the other matches, we're hearing a lot of the kind of famous themes for the first time. Like we would have gotten to hear like the Dusty Rhodes one earlier on, and
I love that one.
you know,
I have
a
that
few
uploaded on
others.
my channel. That he's just a common man. Love
Yeah,
that.
great song.
That's the
Great,
only thing I
great
do
song.
like about his run is that piece of music is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, he might have looked a bit stupid, but by God, he came out to good entrance music.
And I did I made when I say I made a video, it's just a slideshow to that music a few weeks back because I just really like that song and I would put it on my channel so I can actually just listen to it any time on various devices. And I put quotes in, like real quotes from him throughout his career. And one of the quotes that was like so random was like, "I'm grateful for my polka dots." It's like because he's like, "I'm getting the big money in WWF," and and people are getting pissed off with some of my booking down south, and they've seen a lot of the same matches and him and Flair and all the classic stuff. But they were getting a little tired. We're seeing 10 years of this stuff, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to make some money at WWF, and so what if I'm wearing polka dots?" It's
They definitely missed a trick by not having the American Dream's Dusty Rhodes feud with Akeem, the African Dream. Like that was just a feud that was ready. They definitely should have went with that.
Missed opportunity there.
Yeah, fun little match here. Two big lads slapping the hell out of each other and knocking the shit out of each other, as we like to say. And yeah, it's over before you know it, with a bit of shenanigans at the end, of course. Earthquake doing the run-in, and then Hacksaw having to get the old 2x4 out to administer some justice in the ring.
But poor Hacksaw, man. Look, Dino Bravo is getting some big fucking NBA hang time here there with that elbow, and that Earthquake is getting in there for one of us. Well,
yeah, he's taking all the punishment tonight, poor Hacksaw.
And a lot of these shorter matches, even some of your bigger guys are getting way up on the ropes. I mean, Macho, of course, always doing those double axe handles, but they're jumping off the ropes and doing shit. Coming up in a little bit, we'll see Jake the Snake versus the $1 Million Man, who both jump off the ropes as well. But then in some of the other matches, you've got like bloody Warrior trying to like stumble up there and basically almost like fall off the ropes rather than jump off them. So there's a lot of leaping about and even acrobatic stuff, even from these bigger guys. It's fairly impressive.
Yeah, getting in that those air miles, the hang time, shocking
Frequent
scenes.
fly miles. Yeah, then we get after the match ends, we get some little recaps coming up, recaps of like the rivalry, what was happening in the storyline with the $1 Million Man and Jake the Snake and the $1 million championship and the $1 million belt.
Yes, get a great promo from Jake the Snake.
Yeah, I tried uploading this earlier, but the YouTube thing went, no, you cannot show this. It is copyrighted everywhere on the entire planet, because I was actually going to play it, but it wouldn't let me. So I'm like, fuck you.
Sure,
YouTube.
look, it's probably up there somewhere if any of you haven't
Probably
heard
is. If your channel's 10 years old, they don't give a shit. You can play entire matches and promos, everything. But he put something new, something up now that's old, and it just recognizes everything. It says, no, can't play this anywhere. Because the awesome promo from Jake.
So good, so good. Definitely, folks, if you've got a chance, maybe just throw into Google or YouTube Jake Roberts WrestleMania 6 promo if you want to hear it. I couldn't even do it justice to try and imitate Jake or do his verbiage, so I'll leave that
Well,
up
he
to
was
the man
always
himself.
great with like psychology and promos and that. And he wasn't a screamer. He wasn't like rah, 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 rah. He would just like talk normally. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna come out there, $1 Million Man. You got the, and he talk about like $1 Million Man, like wasting your money and not helping any people. And then at the end of the match, he does actually pick up some of the money that was left. $1 Million Man threw around and gave it to some people in the audience, which was cool.
Yeah, great moment. And it's this is a nice wee match, even though once again you'd probably kind of think that it would have been nice if they had maybe cut out a few of the other matches. This match would have been given a little bit more time to breathe, because it is a pretty big deal. These two would be two of my favorites from the era. So
Same.
it's
Well,
kind of a
probably
treat.
my favorite match in Mania 6 was actually just because I like these guys so much.
Yes, same as, and they're a lot more than the match they were given. But that being said, it is a fun match between two guys who really know what they're doing in the ring.
Well, they're both good show wrestlers, and they're both great at promos and character stuff. And
yeah, and Jake. I know Jake's probably better known for his interviews and promos, but like in his heyday, he could work with the best of them, and his stuff always looked good, and he knows how to milk that crowd. Like they're chanting for that DDT. They want it so bad, but he knows how to milk every last second of that and make you wait to see him hit that move. He always knows just how to bring the crowd along with him. He, like you said, he's just a real master of ring psychology and just holding the crowd in the palm of his hand. And of course, Ted DiBiase is just he's like a technical master in the ring. He's just a really, really accomplished pro wrestler in his own right. So, it's not surprising that the two of them would be good together in the ring. It's just that it's a little bit unfortunate that we don't get more out of this match than what we get to see here at WrestleMania 6. Like on the night, this would have been a match that probably could have been afforded a longer run time to give us that kind of epic, memorable match. Still, though, can't fault it, and of course, I'm happy to see the $1 Million Man leave with the $1 million belt, even if he did retain it through nefarious and underhanded tactics.
Yeah, Virgil does some interference on the end of the match.
That's right. Of course, Virgil, who we mentioned last week,
Jake picks him up and smacks
him
around.
He does, yeah. He gets smacked, and when look, they always make sure to do that, or at least when they're thinking about it, they do. Like if you lost the match, we are going to try and give you some steam back at the end by having you like attack the manager or attack whoever did the dirty on you.
That Mania 6, like the post-match brawl or something comes in, it's like, fuck this, I'm gonna get back in there.
Yeah, we always need our post-match shenanigans here at these Manias.
It is quite satisfying, really, when you see especially if it's a shorter match, where you feel like, I did it the way I wanted to do, and then the guy Well, they might have lost, but when they get back in there and just start smacking up their opponent anyway. I'm sure if you did that in boxing or MMA, you would be banned for life. But in wrestling, anything
yeah.
goes.
Yeah, totally acceptable in wrestling for all this extracurricular activity after the match take place.
Get in there yourself, or get your manager or whoever to jump in with your legal object or whatever.
All the while,
Yeah,
somebody
didn't enjoy this
desperately
match.
keeps ringing the bell to make you stop, but you never stop. You just keep
And I
going
basically
until
watched this
security.
twice today because I was rewatching. I watched kind of half of this Mania about a week ago, and then today I was building the show note to watch the other half. And I went from watching on one thing at one and then half down to the other. So I watched a bit of this and fell asleep. Then I went back down and I went, well, I'll just start the match over again because I don't remember, because I was absolutely wiped out and I had to get back into it.
Oh yeah. And now we're going to have straight after this match, we're going to get a match between the former tag team partners. Now we saw the Mega Powers explode last year, but now we're seeing the Twin Towers explode, which probably is something
this is
I
that
could not
theme again
say.
of like guys teaming up, but now they're against each other. And apparently it can be bought. Is that what it says?
Yeah. Akeem, he chastises Boss Man before the match. He's like, you should have taken the money. But Boss Man in his promo, he's like, I don't care if I'm poor. I can't be bought. I won't take the money. I got honor. I got respect. I won't take the money from you. So, the battle lines are drawn. The Boss Man can't be bought. But right before this match starts, we discover this. Ted DiBiase has been hanging around ringside this whole time since the previous match. And he jumped Boss Man.
He's not supposed to be out here.
Yeah, he just puts the boots to Boss Man, which once again, if this was actual boxing or UFC, this would be enough reason to call off the match and fine and suspend somebody. But right here, DiBiase like busts up the big Boss Man, throws him back into the ring right in front of the referee, and the referee's just like, all right, yeah, you good? Okay, let's ring the bell and get this match started.
Like, whatever, let's keep going.
But, in fairness to the Boss Man, he overcomes the odds despite taking the beating in the early going and, being jumped by $1 Million Man. He's still able to take it to Akeem and beat him with the Boss Man slam and beat up Slick after the match as well. So the Boss Man is really on a roll here. And he comes out to some great music as well. That Hard Times theme, that's a brilliant piece of entrance music, as is Akeem and Slick's Jive Soul Bro. So lots of really good entrance themes on display here. If music can be displayed, probably not. I don't know if that's the correct grammar, but there you go. Yeah, Akeem and Big Boss Man coming to blows. The Twin Towers have fallen. They are no more.
Yeah, I just find it. I mean, I haven't seen all the weekly shows, so it was funny seeing the stories. I did watch. We've done Mania 5 last week, Mania 6 this week. In between, I did watch SummerSlam from the same year as well, so I saw some more of the continuation of the stories and the team ups and breakups, and it starts to feel like I'm watching fucking Melrose Place or Beverly Hills 90210. Like, oh, this couple's together, and now they're breaking up, and now they're with the other person over here. And like, why? What happened? I don't know all the background details.
Yeah, tag teams splitting up and going their separate ways, or managers selling off clients to other managers, and all sorts of shenanigans going on here in the World Wrestling Federation.
And we do get is it? I think it's Carol Burnett, or is it? No, I always mix up the celebrities' names because it was from like a decade prior to when I was born.
Yeah, they weren't celebrities though.
It's either Carol Burnett or Mary Tyler Moore.
It's one of those two.
One of those two. But a good sport because they go up and they're saying hello to people in the audience, and they're like, "Who do you think's going to win? And what about this?" And just smiles and nods, and like, "Yeah."
I'm really just here because I was asked to be here. I haven't been paying attention to the show. I really have no care as to who wins this match or any of the matches.
there really is a de-emphasis on celebrities, which is one of the things I like about this one. Actually, is it's not like too obsessed. There's little guests here and there, but they're not giving them too much attention. But plenty of attention going on for this whole segment here, which is not a match, but just it's a musical performance on a whole show with the lights and coming out in the Cadillac. And Jake Roberts, of course, had his DDT, but now we've got a DDP coming out here.
Oh, yeah. And I'm delighted that you know the backstory to this.
Well, because I've listened to his podcast several times, so I've DDP, so he's told it.
Yes. So here we have DDP making his WWF debut long before we knew him as the man he'd go on to become in
and this is when he was basically a manager.
That's right. And it's one of those things where if you weren't, told it, or if you didn't know from reading about it, he's just the guy driving a car. But as soon as you're told it's him, you can't unsee him. You know it's him straight away from now on when you watch it. You can see, oh yeah, it obviously was DDP.
Diamond Exchange.
But they're coming out with the Honkettes in the pink Cadillac, and we're going to see a marvelous rendition of this new song. Even though Greg Valentine doesn't really carry his weight as a singer, it's Honky doing all the hard work.
And do you know what my favorite bit of commentary is? Is it's like they've got their gold record. It's gone gold, even though it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah, but it's hilarious. And look, I know people are like looking at Greg thinking like, oh, they've made him look like a goof. He's hanging around with the honky tonk man. But I think he seems to be having a fun time.
With the goofy hair.
Yeah. And look, he looks like he's having fun. It's the most fun you'll probably ever see Greg the Hammer Valentine having. But of course,
what happens with these idiots from New Zealand?
Yeah, these Kiwi boys, they just they want to experience some Kiwi love, so they show up. They destroy the set, they destroy the guitars, they wreck everything, and then they do the bushwhacker dance or the bushwhacker walk.
And they're not in any matches or either on the card. They're just there to come in and make chaos.
Yeah, somebody had to go out, set up all of this set, set up all the speakers, the musical equipment, had to get the car ready to be driven out just so they could do this like 5 minutes of singing. Yeah, and for the bushwhackers to come out and smash it. Those damn sheep herders, how dare they? But
and they do go out into the audience too and say, who's your favorite music and favorite album? It's like, I don't know, these guys, I guess, sort of things kind of for the audience. But some of the young kids, they kind of coach them like, is this your favorite song? Like, yeah, what's it called? Hunker, 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 honky. Like, it's like they've never heard it, so is it their favorite song?
Of course, we got the official attendance announced by the Fink at 67,600.
I wonder if they're being truthful this time.
I would say they are probably being a little more truthful than they have been on previous occasions, but with them, it's never
exaggerated by 10 or 20,000 people.
Yeah, Vince will always put a few extra numbers on top of that. Just
round up. That's what we learned in math.
But yeah, so even though we actually do get one of the more, even though it's not a match, this is probably one of the more memorable segments on the entire show. And it is nice that like we said, we get to catch a glimpse of a young Diamond Dallas Page before he'd go on to fame. It's nice seeing him here as the lucky owner and driver of the pink Cadillac.
Yeah. And that's pretty much how he got the gig. It's like, you got a Cadillac? Okay, can you bring it here?
Yeah, can you drive their Cadillac to...
It's like, who's going to drive it? Well, I guess it'll be you.
It's me. It's D.
It makes me think of like shit like in the old days, like there'd be like a 50s science fiction movie, and it's like, who do we know that's got a gorilla suit and a fishbowl? Okay, can you turn up on the day and you bring the suit? Okay, you're in the movie. It's like that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, look, you got to do what you got to do. They needed a pink Cadillac, and they had an inroad to somebody who had one.
Yeah.
So
actually, I picked up a couple of weeks back. I got a 3 DVD set of DDP like best of, and I didn't know when I got it. There's a whole like 50-minute sort of like I wouldn't call it a real documentary. It's more just like him narrating and talking about his life. But it's a short documentary, but not on the usual production value you'd associate with the word. But it was pretty good. It's got decent matches, and it was actually really cool to see him. I've listened to his podcast heaps and watched his other stuff. It was cool to see him, and he goes back to his hometown, and he's walking through, and he goes through all the classic stories about what he talked to the Diamond Exchange and Razor Ramon, talking to Dusty Rhodes on the phone where he does the impersonation. He's like, "Good God, yo, Dusty Rhodes, American Dream," and Dusty Rhodes is like, "Who is this?" It's like, "Is this a recording, kid?" It's like, no, he's doing an impression. He did such a good impression that Dusty Rhodes thought he was playing a recording and not actually imitating with his own voice.
Yeah, he'd some career, Diamond, and he started late. He was
Well, he was in his
mid
30s.
Yeah,
mid-30s. And the other guys were laughing at him because he'd been a manager pretty much by accident, because he was on the radio as a personality or made-up character inspired by wrestling. And some people thought he was actually involved with wrestling and said, "Oh, can you come and be involved and do a thing?" And he just went, "Well, fuck it. They believe this character, so I'm going to go with it," and turned it into a real-life thing, became a manager in the wrestling for a period of time. And then he went, "I want to have a go at actually wrestling," and everyone laughed at him. And these were people that were his friends were laughing at him, going, "You're an idiot. This is never going to work." And then he had some awesome matches with Macho Man on WCW in the mid-90s, and Macho really helped put him over big time and helped sell him,
Oh yeah, and someday we will cross that threshold and hopefully get to review a few of DDP's matches, which will definitely be more enjoyable than this match between Ravishing Rick Rude and Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Not that it's a particularly bad match, but once again, it's like, it's nearly over before you can kind of think about it. And it's clearly designed to give Rick Rude a quick win, because he's probably going to be feuding with Warrior in the aftermath of this for that world title, so they need to kind of build him up again a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course, when it comes to Snuka,
getting a big push over the previous 12 months too.
Oh yeah, and deservedly so. As I kind of mentioned last time, Rude, he's not just a body guy; he's a great wrestler too. So I always enjoy when he's actually being pushed and used. Snuka, well, look, we've spoken about Snuka's real life exploits and checkered past, which is putting it lightly. But look, the two of them come out. They have a professional, relatively quick, exciting match, and it's kind of over, like I said before. You know it with Rude picking up the quick win over Superfly.
And the best commentary, I don't know if it's Monsoon or Jesse says it, but it's like, "Snooker's wearing my wife's underwear."
I think it's that comedian guy,
like the Ted Bundy style.
Yeah, that guy. He's just banging out the one-liners all night in every segment you see him in. He's a funny dude.
Yeah, and then we get some highlights of what's been going on in previous weeks and months on the main event on Saturday night. And
Earthquake looks like he's cosplaying as Juggernaut there, wearing his brown singlet.
the brown.
But yeah, these two behemoths had kind of first crossed paths at the Royal Rumble. They found themselves kind of face to face during the match, and they had a brief exchange, which kind of almost showed them both to be equals, which obviously is a pretty big deal when you're going up against Hulk Hogan to be presented
so they both equally
in such
don't
a way.
know how to wrestle. Is that what you're saying?
Well, equals in terms of power, shall we say? Maybe I should have phrased it that way.
Equal amounts of time at the gym, I'll go with.
Equal amounts of time going into the toilets after the gym and maybe injecting themselves with something to give them.
They've eaten an equal amount of raw eggs to get pumped up.
But yeah, so we see the kind of various backstory of how it's come to be between Hogan and Warrior. It's the Hulkamaniacs versus the Warriors. It's two beliefs at war here. Do you believe in Hulkamania or do you believe in the power of the Warriors? You know,
Yeah. And the crowd
I don't know
goes
what I
like
believe in.
nuts.
Oh yeah, they are like this is a molten match, you know, to put on, and you know, like we kind of mentioned at the end of WrestleMania 5 last time, it's a big deal change of pace to be having a baby face go up against
Yeah,
another
that's the other
baby
thing I
face
thought of.
as your
Like,
main
you know,
event,
good guy versus the good guy. And,
and it's a sign of the winds of change, at least attempting to blow through the federation, because you know we're going to see Hogan show a lot more vulnerability than we're used to him showing. We've also got the novelty of the fact that this is a champion versus champion match. So we've got the
yes.
Intercontinental Champion going up
Mhm.
against the World Wrestling Federation champion, which is a big deal back then. It's something that happens a lot more often in the modern wrestling world, but back here it's a really big
Well,
deal to be
now
seeing a
people have
champion
like
versus
10
champion
bloody
match.
belts and they're on this and the TV man, champion of the world, and last week's champion and this week's champion. But here it seemed to actually mean something. It was like, you know, more significant.
Oh yeah, because the titles were prestigious. They did not change hands on a whim. Like even if we think about leading up to this, like
I
Warrior,
feel like
he's
there's too
coming
many
off of
belts in modern wrestling. They just made up too many bullshit belts. They don't need so many.
yeah,
Like
it
I like
begins to
joke
feel
ones,
like
like having like your hardcore belt. Like that was kind of a joke one. They had, you know, like Al Snow and Mankind and stuff. But when it's like, then it's the TV champion, then it's the hardcore champion, then it's the guy of the week, and it's I've been to the groceries and done the shopping champion. You know, there's a bunch of nonsense.
I honestly think, and this is, you know, maybe I'm showing my age here a bit, but for simplistic and maybe like just enough balance, you're probably good enough having a world champion, then
Yeah.
a belt that's slightly secondary to that. You can call it either an
Mhm.
Intercontinental or United
Yeah,
States, whatever you
whatever.
want to call it. A tag team championship,
Yeah.
and then a women's championship if you have enough women wrestlers to actually field
Yeah, if you've
a
got
division.
some.
I think that really is enough for most wrestling promotions. But like you
Yeah.
said, when it gets
And
to the point where they're just like handing out belts, it's like everybody gets a belt, you know, participation belts.
Yeah,
You know?
everyone gets about. I like when Intercontinental was more like actually traveling to other countries, as in like the meaning of the name, like, you know, like Bret Hart and whatnot. I think that makes more sense if they did that. And then if you had another one that was the equivalent of Intercontinental below the World Heavyweight Champ, but it was just in America, that would make sense to me. And then Intercontinental was like you could still be in America, but if you're not traveling, well, how can two Americans just get winning Intercontinental belts if they've only fought each other and haven't left the country? It's like
That's such a WWF / WWE thing. It's like
yeah.
the European Championship that was hardly ever held or contested with
Yeah, well,
Europeans.
that's
Like,
to me like Intercontinental should be the European champions. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It should be that, you know, it should be like,
yeah,
well, at least once a year you've got to go to the UK or Australia and fight the British Bulldog and fight someone else, or go to Japan or something.
no, they don't care. They just throw those names out willy nilly. They don't care what the meaning behind it is, or it's like these days where it's like the
Been to the
Universal
toilet
Champion.
5 minutes ago championship. I won that belt.
But yeah, no. So, but look, yeah, it's a big deal here. Back in 1990, for the Intercontinental Champion to be facing off against the World Wrestling Federation Champion. It's a big moment, and you know, as the old cliche goes, you could cut the electricity with a knife. This is like a molten hot crowd. They're witnessing
Yeah, the crowd is
an
just going
historic moment.
mental.
And I'll say one thing about this match, like look, it is what it is. We've got Hogan and Warrior, and like Hogan's like not exactly like a technical master, and Warrior
There's a
is
lot of
what he is.
bouncing off the ropes in this match.
There is, but you know what? They keep it simple in such a
Yeah.
way as to really hide Warrior's weaknesses, because
Oh,
like
yeah.
this is a pretty long ass match for a Warrior match. Like it goes on
It's
a
actually
while,
like
but
30 minutes. I looked at the time. It's
yeah,
like 30 minutes. I wouldn't guess it was that long.
but they're pretty good at just keeping the crowd into it, and it's lots of kind of
Oh yeah,
simple
they
stuff.
milk
Like,
the crowd the whole time. That's definitely it reminds me a fair bit of Mania 3 Hogan versus Andre, where Andre injuries or injury / illness and whatnot, they got to work around it. Here, Warrior just never learned how to wrestle, so you got to work around that. But they milk it for what it's worth, and they built up. You got the crowds well into it, which is an awesome atmosphere in the audience. There's so many homemade signs and things, and it's also it's a real peak of just Hogan Mania, Warrior Mania, and merchandise and stuff's going through the roof and going bloody bonanzas, and you can really feel all that stuff coming together.
proper split crowd as well. It really is like half and half.
Yeah,
You just don't know who's got the upper hand in terms of audience force, because you do hear Hogan getting booed at times. You also hear Warrior getting booed at times, so you definitely get that real kind of split atmosphere in the place. But they keep everything simple. It's like test of strengths. Bear hugs, clotheslines. It's all very rudimentary, simple stuff. But you know what? It's perfect because it tells a really obvious story that everybody in that big dome can follow along to. It's also one of those rare occasions where Hogan does show a bit more vulnerability than usual. Like he gets knocked out of the ring, and he's really selling his knee, like he can't get up on his own power.
Get me knee.
Yeah, knee's gone,
Which we
brother.
find 5 minutes from now, but right now it's destroyed.
Yeah, be grand tomorrow though. Don't worry. But yeah, he's
They just grew a new knee
and,
by the time we got back in the ring.
And we do see like there's kickouts galore from big moments that would usually finish guys off, and the leg drop can't get the job done like it usually would, and we like Hogan even he hooks up on Warrior, but Warrior kind of does his version of the hook up on him. Like he's got an answer for everything that Hogan can throw at him, and Gorilla, he wheels out the old cliche that he used for Hogan and Andre of the immovable force meeting the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. He throws that gem out there on commentary again, just to emphasize the significance of this match. And yeah, they really, I shouldn't, okay, look, obviously it takes two to tango. They both play their part, but Hogan is obviously the guy who's kind of leading this match in terms of obviously telling Warrior what to do next and kind of leading him along. And I think in that respect, Hogan should be given credit for making this match what it was. Because he's somebody who probably we wouldn't praise too often for being able to put together, intricate matches, or at least a match of this caliber.
He's kind of the culmination of there's different aspects to a show wrestler. You've got the character or persona, if you like. You've got technical wrestling ability, and then you've got merchandise and crowd stuff. And are they over with the crowd and do people like them? And there's all these different elements that come together. But Warrior was couldn't wrestle for shit, but the crowd loved him. The persona and the character was going through the roof, and merchandise and all that. So all these other elements were working for him, even if he can't wrestle. And he should have gone and learned. If he just put some effort in, he could have learned.
Well, I think when it comes to Warrior, he probably felt like he learned as much as he needed to do what they had him doing at the time, because it's one of those guys. It's a little bit like Bill Goldberg.
He stayed up all night on a school night, and just the night before the test, right, I'm just going to do what I need to do to pass the test, and that's it, no more.
It's like these guys, guys like Ultimate Warrior, guys like Bill Goldberg, where they're put on TV.
Yeah, Goldberg.
And they're put in matches. They get put in matches that are always really short, where all they have to do is run into the ring, essentially hit their signature moves, and then win the match. And then they're only having those type of matches for a very long period of time, and then all of a sudden they're put in a situation where they have to go 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, and then they can be exposed as not really knowing how to do much, or not even being able to last that long. Because one thing I'll say about this match, and even though Warrior doesn't really botch things and he's keeping up with Hogan, you can definitely tell by the end of the match, like he is huffing and puffing, like he is tired
Yeah.
as fuck, he is gassed, he's not used to going wrestling long matches like this. His face is just like, ooh, like as the sweat's just kind of like pissing out of
Yeah,
his
no
head.
Ric
Like,
Flair.
he's no Ric Flair. He ain't no 60-minute man. Is the Ultimate Warrior. I'll say that much. But
Yeah,
look,
well, that's typical of bodybuilders who don't do cardio or don't do some kind of conditioning. Whereas Ric Flair is the opposite. Never done bodybuilding. He's got the muscle he needs to wrestle, but he's all cardio.
yeah, because even Hogan, like Hogan doesn't look as tired as Warrior at the end of this match, because Hogan at
Yeah.
least is used to wrestling a longer style match when needs be.
Yeah,
But you know, look,
I don't know
those criticisms.
I don't know what the hell Hogan's routines are, but he must do something for his heart and lungs, because he usually gets through matches without looking like he's huffing and puffing.
Yeah, and he's still alive as well, so he must have been
Yeah,
doing
he's still
something right. But
Yeah.
but yeah, he you know, there's another moment in this match prior to the end where the referee is knocked down, and we get two moments. First moment is where Hogan actually pins Warrior, but the referee isn't there. But Hogan counts a 3 count himself, so he kind of gets like a visual victory over Warrior.
Yeah.
And then later on, the same thing happens again, where the referee is still down, and this time Warrior pins Hogan, and he counts the pin himself. So both of them have almost kind of visually beaten the other one, just that the referee has not actually been there
And
to
that's
call
the
the
kind of
decision.
thing you see later on with like Undertaker and Shawn and stuff like that, where they're just like, the referee's knocked out, we've staggered around, we've pinned each other multiple times, but nobody's there to count.
That's there so for your fans to say, you know what, he would have won if the referee had just been awake. Would have, could have, you know.
Referee, mate,
But
plywood, get another referee in here.
instead, though, what we do see is Hogan hitting the ropes to hit the leg drop, but Warrior moves at the last second. Hogan hits the mat, and Warrior just lands his big splash on him, and it's enough to get the 1, 2, 3 to beat him and win the big belt and become a double champion. And of course, it's a famous moment, and it's something that
Can't
Hogan
keep two belts, you're not allowed. That's the rules. I asked Jack.
Yeah, you're
Tunney.
not allowed. Back then,
Not
you were not allowed to do that. They changed
Bloody
that rule
detention
later
if you
on.
got 2 belts.
But you know, this is kind of another kind of famous moment, and it's a kind of famous bit of Hogan being Hogan and essentially taking the spotlight off of Warrior, because
Yeah.
instead of Warrior just beating him and then having his hand raised in victory, instead what we get is Hogan getting out of the ring under his own power, looking very sad and upset. He walks over, he gets his belt, he slowly gets back into the ring looking like he's about to cry, and then he hands Warrior the belt, and then he hugs him. So he's like really like, oh, love me, pretty much. And then like there's like a complete, like there's a big parting shot of Hogan, like, you know, going back up the ramp and on the card, and he looks all sad and disappointed. And it's like it totally takes the spotlight away from Warrior's moment. Like, you should really be focusing on the fact that Warrior has won the match, and they will obviously, you know, light the pyro and show it on the big screen of him holding the 2 belts. But Hogan definitely does his best to take the spotlight away from him. It's like, look at me, brother. It's all about me.
Yeah, pretty much did his entire career, didn't he? It's like,
He did. He did.
Even when he wasn't in the wrestling, he was in Hollywood, he would find some way of getting attention.
You know, look, that complaint aside, they managed to pull off, you know, a pretty much a miracle here. It's a really good match, and it kind of like this. If this match had not been as good as it was, then you probably would consider this Mania a dud, because it's so long and there's so many other matches that if they did not deliver for the main event, you would have just been like, oh, come on, like, what if I just sat through 3 hours for this?
Yeah.
So at least we actually do get a worthy main event and a memorable main event with a historical result.
First Mania outside of America.
That's right. That's right. The first international WrestleMania. Not the last. And not even the last in Canada. if we ever make it as far as WrestleMania 18, we may one day get to cover the famous Rock versus Hogan match, which would be a big deal. But for now, we have Warrior. He's basking in his glory, holding those two beautiful belts as the pyro goes off. Will this be the beginning of a new era? No, as it turns out. Unfortunately for Warrior, it just, it just did not work out quite as planned. And part of that was, they feuded him against guys who he'd already beaten and who Hogan had already beaten. So it was tough to draw decent crowds for his title defenses. So by the time we're, hitting the summer, you can tell Vince is already starting to have, second thoughts on Warrior holding the big belt. And as it turns out, Warrior, he's not going to be heading in.
Last year was
his last year in WWF.
Yeah, I know it's somewhere in the early 90s because he has that kind of cameo much later in WCW.
He disappears, I think, for a bit in 91, comes back for a bit in 92, and then is gone again. So 92 really, I think, is his last time.
Because he had some, I don't know how all the details, but he had legal disagreements around character merchandise and possibly some kind of mental breakdown or something in real life where he was. Because I remember at the time there was making like Warrior comics and other shit where he's taking the Warrior character legally distinct from Ultimate Warrior to just Warrior was in the comic shop, and it was like kind of like he's trying to be that guy in real life or something, and it was getting a bit weird.
Well, let's not forget this is the man who has legally changed his name to Warrior. He died. When he died, his name was Warrior. No first name, no surname, just Warrior. His real name, his birth name was Jim Hellwig, but he'd been living as the Warrior for years. He was known as the Warrior.
Yeah, it was just weird because I wasn't watching wrestling particularly in this era of the 90s, but I remember seeing at the comic shop, seeing the Warrior comic book. And I looked at it and I went, is that the 80s Ultimate Warrior guy? But it's just called Warrior. And I was like, why? I'm confused.
And I think, he, like you were mentioning with the merchandise deals, I think in around 96 or the mid 90s anyway, when he was making a WWF comeback, part of his deal was that the WWF actually had to purchase like hundreds of thousands of copies of these comics and distribute them on his behalf as well, I think. And then there was a falling out over how that worked out commercially.
It reminds me of similar things like Sergeant Slaughter and Jesse Ventura, both sort of, firstly, both of those guys made their own name before they came to WWF, so that's, have their own following. But their names and characters, they pretty much owned or did other stuff with them. And of course, Slaughter and G.I. Joe and all that sort of thing. And good on them, because why the hell not? You should own your bloody character. Otherwise, McMahon's going to fucking trademark anything he can. And from a business point of view, you're selling merchandise, you're making your wrestle buddies, pillows, and video games. And Warrior, it's not like it really had much of a following before he was Ultimate Warrior. Like, is anyone going, I want Blade Runner's merchandise from, tag team with old bloody Sting and that? So I feel like he had less of a claim to the merchandise stuff outside of the royalties, whereas Sergeant Slaughter and Jesse Ventura, I'm like, well, those guys already established a lot before WWF just came along and cruised along on what they'd already got into.
Yeah. And,
so he seems like a bit selfish in that way. Like, he was built up by them, and it's like, well, you're making all this money, but now you're going, I want all this extra shit on top, And,
well, like, you mentioned the Blade Runners there. So this is the year, 1990 is the year where both Blade Runners ended up capturing the world title in both companies that they worked for the first time. Yeah. So we've got Warrior defeating Hogan here. Of course, this is also the year that Sting defeats Flair. So we kind of have this kind of movement almost in wrestling in 1990 where both companies are trying to try a new, younger guy on top, which just so happens coincidentally that both guys who they're doing this with were both former tag team partners, which is kind of But you know, look, Warrior,
It's
he
funny
will
that
have his ups and downs.
Warrior became more the pumped up guy, whereas Sting became more of a wrestler guy.
Yeah. Oh, Sting, look, I'll just say this right now. And look, nothing, look, Warrior, whatever about him in real life, whatever. But look, Sting, to me, as a wrestler, is like 1,000 times better than Warrior. Like, for what he can do in the ring, he's
That's
just,
just like that's what I mean. Warrior could have put some time in. He could have put 6 to 12 months in and do some actual practice in wrestling. You know, it could have been better, but whatever.
yeah. But yeah, and look, it's one of those things when Warrior is in the ring with somebody talented who can cover for him, the match will be good. But if he's
Yeah.
in the ring with somebody who's not that talented and he's depending on himself to carry his own side of the the equation, he kind of falls apart, especially in longer matches. He just never had the mindset for
Yeah.
putting them together. Whereas at least with Sting, he seems, like you said, he kind of learns as he goes along, and he wrestles with veterans who have more experience than him, but he learns from them and then carries that on to future matches. Whereas with Warrior, it's like he learned how to do a few things and then decided that's all I ever really need to know, and I'm just going to keep on doing these few things.
And famously didn't want to put other people over or do much of anything for anyone.
Yeah. And look,
Even,
I'm sure he made money. He did make a lot of money, and I guess I can respect him making a lot of money, but he might not have been the most easiest guy to have to work with or
my
do business with.
favorite Warrior stories on the Bret Hart biography. So take it with a grain of salt. I mean, whether it's exactly true or not, I don't know. But it's in the Bret Hart biography. That's like 500 pages. He reckons there was a time where backstage, a sick, dying kid who loved wrestling came to see Warrior and tried to get his autograph, and Warrior just basically told him to piss off and ignored him. It's like a sick, dying kid. I'm like, okay, that's
I've heard terrible. Yeah, I've heard really terrible stories about how Warrior conducted himself. And look, there's even, like, I'm not going to go and give you like exact citations, but if anybody is interested in, there's stuff on YouTube, actual audio and video of Warrior saying and doing some pretty terrible things. So it's not like he was a saint, even though in the modern era, since he's died, he kind of has almost been canonized as a saint.
Yeah.
A lot of his kind of real life shortcomings have been kind of brushed aside, and we're only kind of focusing on his in-ring work in the 80s and 90s. He's become a kind of beloved figure, but it just goes to show you how much times change, because I have a DVD in my wrestling collection called "The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior," which is just
one they've put out.
it's a 2-hour hit piece by the WWE completely burying the man, because it was released at a time when he was still out of favor with the company. Whereas now
they did a similar thing to Bret Hart too, where they tried to do a thing like that with him.
Yeah, and it just depends if you're in the good books with them, they'll tell a good story about you. But if you're not in their good books, they'll hit you.
Put out some nasty bullshit.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of those documentaries of that era, they're all hard copy style ones. Like they're not like real documentaries where there's any kind of research or kind of more exploratory narrative. It's very much like there's Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard in the office, and the writing, and everyone who the talking heads are coached on exactly what to say, as if they were saying it themselves, but they're not. It's just the company official PR mouthpiece thing,
Yeah, and they at one time, I don't know if they still are, but at one time they were masters at just manipulating their audience into like hating certain individuals, and for many years, like Warrior was public enemy #1, and he was just portrayed as this past his prime, out of touch nobody who was just this lame, cheesy character from the 80s. But then all of a sudden, once he agreed to go back and do the Hall of Fame, all of a sudden it's like, oh, Warrior, he was one of our biggest stars ever. We've always loved him, Let's release a 3-disc Best of Ultimate Warrior DVD, and let's never talk about the self-destruction of Ultimate Warrior.
Whose Hall of Fame is worth watching is Bobby the Brain Heenan. He tells so many good gags and jokes and stuff through it, man. It's great to watch.
And if anybody is interested in watching that, it's the full segment is up on YouTube of Bobby the Brain's Hall of Fame induction. If anybody's looking for it, you just search for it.
And there's so many awesome guests there, man. Like Triple H is there, Ric Flair's there, Harley Race is there. There's the who's who of who's in the audience, and like sitting up on the stage thing with him was awesome.
Yeah. And it's a bit tearful as well, kind of watching it now and knowing,
Oh, he's got
you know,
cancer and all
obviously
that, and he's
he
wasting away.
passed
before
away.
life.
Yeah.
But
You
full
know,
credit
it's
to him,
sad. It's
and he's
sad.
still full of life.
Oh yeah. Well, look, rest in peace, Bobby. You were one of the greats, no doubt, and worthy
Oh,
of
yeah.
your
That's
Hall
why I
of-
make those
Hall of
terrible
Fame.
joke videos with
Yeah,
that is
you're
like Bobby the Brain.
you're fueling our humor here, even in death. Bobby the Brain
Yeah.
drives us forward here on the Bobby Joe Show. His spirit is with us.
Long live the
Hopefully.
weasel.
Long live the weasel. Long live the brain.
That's what they're
Yeah,
all
so
chanting.
quite
They're like, we want the weasel. We want the weasel.
There was quite a loud weasel chant during one of the matches, as I recall. I just can't remember which one because you know he's out for a couple of them. But Bobby was always good for provoking a reaction, no matter where he went. People loved to hate him.
It's just funny to think like, you know, he's like the heel manager of bad guy or whatever because he's so lovable. It's like, how do you actually hate him?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's a different time. It was a different time, but
he's nearly too good for wrestling, Bobby the Brain.
he's just like
he
somebody's
should have just
granddad,
been,
you know. He's like,
yeah. He should have been doing like late night talk show, like actual late night talk shows on
Yeah.
prime time
Yeah.
television. Like, you know, Saturday Night Live and stuff like that. That should have
Yeah,
been
yeah,
his
yeah.
profession. Because he's nearly too good for wrestling. I wish more people outside of wrestling fans knew who Bobby Heenan was because he was so talented.
Yeah, there's like three guys in wrestling I think of that always make me laugh, and like, I mean, he's the king of that. But like, Bobby the Brain, Jerry Lawler, and Jim Cornette, like just whip smart and like the gags and jokes and stuff they come up with. But like, Bobby the Brain is the king of that sort of thing.
Yeah, he is. And luckily for us, as we progress through more manias, we will be seeing plenty more of Bobby the Brain. He's not left us just yet in our journey, so do look forward to covering more of his exploits in the future.
First times I ever heard his voice was way back in the 90s when they used to have some WCW on TV in New Zealand, like the weekly shows or highlight shows, and he was doing commentary on that when he had left WWF, and that was the first time I ever heard his voice in it. And he's on the video games too. Some of those PlayStation video games in the 90s have like his voice. It's like Bobby the Brain and Tony Schiavone doing the commentary.
And you know, he just suited whatever role he was put in. He was always good to go for whatever type of job you're going to give him, whether it's going to be, you know, evil manager or, you know, comedic sidekick or color commentator. He could do it all. He's just a really, really talented guy.
Well, you know, Mark, the Ultimate Warrior looks like he's in a different state, a state of confusion.
Yeah. Well, the Ultimate Warrior is a very naughty boy because he actually injured Bobby the Brain's, you know, neck on a bot gorilla press slam, you know. Jesus. So, yeah, sorry, Warrior. Hate having to bury you so much on a show that's like kind of almost a tribute to you.
Oh well, he did it to himself.
Hey, look, and look, it's look here, look, and like in many ways, like it's a crazy thing to say, like, but in many ways, I'm still a fan of the Ultimate Warrior as kind of like a character.
Well, I bought the action figure last year, so
yeah,
you know, I don't completely loathe him.
But when it comes to everything else, I'm able to, you know, I can separate the character from the real life person if needs be in order to
the same with Hogan.
Stuff.
I mean, if you I think very few people are a fan of Hogan the man, but plenty of people are a fan of Hogan the wrestler, who's also become like Chuck Norris and his legendary lies and escapades and crazy shit he talks about in every interview, whether it's Joe Rogan or whatever.
Yeah, his lies have taken on a life of their own, and
yeah, it's like another third character, like the old, you know, the old Chuck Norris facts that used to be on the internet, and it's like that sort of thing. Just the crazy legends of Hogan comes up with.
Well, I have it on good authority that you can actually listen to 100% authentic audio recordings of Hulk Hogan's lies on your channel.
I think so. gets up to all sorts. He goes into outer space and he tells you weird stories about all kinds of things, and they're all 100% true because he believes them. That's why they're true.
Well, I encourage anybody, when you have the time, go have a listen to some of Hogan's Tall Tales as presented by Johnny.
And one thing that definitely didn't happen is that he didn't die in a weird fictional audio drama where Mark suggested that he should die. That didn't happen at all.
Yeah, I've nothing against the man. It really was not my idea for him to be killed off in that fashion, as I suggested.
Beaten to death by Shogun warriors.
I'm sure he was fine. He can be resurrected
He was
when
fine.
needed.
He was 5 minutes later. He was rolling around and got up and kicked out.
The man has survived explosions and earthquakes and arenas falling into the ocean. Like, you know, he can survive a Shogun warrior.
Definitely. Well, I think we'll finish up there.
Okay, folks, hope you enjoyed our chat on WrestleMania 6 and enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a safe and responsible St. Patrick's Day if you celebrate such things.
Nice.